Bruce Campbell is the finest man to grace a silver screen. All the other actors just degrade his noble scenes. The Oscars should award him for his wondrous career. Hold a town parade for him with each movie premiere. Bruce Campbell, Bruce Campbell, Bruce Lord Campbell should be offered every lead. Imagine him as Spider-Man, a finer choice indeed. Casablanca could have been improved, the Campbell would have said. Here's looking at you, you primitive screwhead. Bruce Campbell, Bruce Campbell. Dirt, 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 dirt. Gonna come to your house with Tina on and I'll sleep till it's done. I got the whole box set for Briscoe County too. I love you and to prove it's true, I'm gonna play kazoo. Bruce Ash Campbell is a truly stellar man. He bravely fought the Deadites, but a chainsaw took his hand. Coincidentally, I have one I barely ever use. I'll saw it off and ship it to the charming, handsome Bruce.
Get on with it, Cam. God damn it. So we got the one, the only movie buff himself, Gil Palmer, in the house.
Hello.
Hello. Spooky. And returning for what feels like an eternity, we got Kevin from the podcast that would not die.
Thank you for having me.
I get that it's wouldn't, but I just wanted to be more Hammer horror over the wouldn't die. And there's plenty of Hammer references in this. Action,
no question.
comedy, horror, fantasy, crazy low budget turns slightly higher budget escapade that is Evil Dead. And this is one of those, like, I think everyone has kind of evolved in. Some people grow up with like a love-hate relationship to it. Some people love it and then got tired of it. And then other people are just, they're not sure which one they've seen because it's just been on occasion just popped up on like antenna channels or movie channels. You're like, the one where if you were to sum it up, it's like, which is the one where that one guy with the chin tries to avoid creatures that are trying to kill him in a forest? Oh yeah, that one. You know.
Can you be more specific?
Yeah, I need more detail. But first of all, we'll circle around. What got us into kind of, was it like the first thing we saw Bruce in, or was it down the road and then revisited what made him kind of famous on the scene?
Well, I saw the first Evil Dead like probably around '87.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you saw it when
and I saw it on. Yeah, I invited some friends from school over, after we graduated and stuff, and I had an apartment and this really small TV, so I'm watching it on this really small TV. But I really liked
3-4.
It was like 13-inch television.
I remember seeing the Evil Dead like box at the video store.
Oh, right? That's creepy.
Which it's terrifying, right? Seeing that as a young child.
What is these Anchor Bay guys? I think I should check them out.
For reals. So then the first one that I actually wound up seeing on video was Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn.
Wait.
Which is wildly different from the first one. I mean, the plots are obviously similar, but the first one is horror, and the second one's kind of slapstick comedy.
Yeah, who'd have thought it?
Right.
Well, that became more progressive with each movie. The slapstick comedy. Yep.
I was one of those. I was the GeoCities era, so I I knew about all these different guys who wore all these different hats, all the Joe Dantes, Tarantino's, Rodriguez's of the world. But then Raimi's kind of in that same camp, and I realized, oh, okay, so he and Campbell have worked with the Coen brothers, and then
Oh yeah.
now they've done serious stuff like A Simple Plan. You're like, where did that come from? That was good, but it's not horror. But and then Spider-Man, but Army of Darkness, you'll find this funny, in the 2000s was often a regular on the weekends on Sci-Fi Channel, along with the Night of the Living Dead remake and Mosquito, and just fun Sunday night B movie fare. If it wasn't stuff you weren't ashamed to watch, even though it was lowbrow enough for Joe Bob, but it wasn't infamous enough to be on Mystery Science Theater, and it was just I was kind of in that zone. I started recognizing all these actors and how I was like, okay, so they got recurring roles on Homicide and a little known hit like X-Files and Star Trek. And yeah, this Campbell guy, he's joked about a lot because he, like Danny Trejo and Al Leong, just appear in just about everything. And even if they're not the star, you just can't take your eyes off them. You're like, and so when you see that he was on all these other cult shows that for the longest time, like Briscoe County Jr. is like, where do I find that? And then by the time he's on Burn Notice, it's like, cool. Now he's at like the 5th stage of his career. And I kind of had a love-hate relationship with him. And I wasn't the kind of guy who, got grossed out or anything. I was just like, this is so dumb, but it's growing on me. And I get it. There's just something about this hillbilly who comes into town, and lo and behold, more curiosity kills the cat each time. It's like, and and then you see violent anime that was like inspired by the first one that took it like so serious. And you're like, good God, guys, it's just a movie. It's just it never spares to fascinate me with how, again, who could have predicted this?
Right.
And
I remember seeing the poster for Army of Darkness when this is like mid-90s, and I was like, I did a double take
style. Dun, 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 yeah.
Right. I couldn't, because it's not Evil Dead's Army of Darkness. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, that looks like Ash. I mean, am I hallucinating? He's got a chainsaw.
I can only imagine everyone.
Right. Doesn't the title even come up, Bruce Campbell in the Army of Darkness?
Kind of, but yeah, I mean,
there was probably 6 years between Evil Dead 2 to Army of Darkness, give or take. Mm-hmm. And Evil Dead 2, in my mind, was kind of a cult film. You know what I mean? Yes. So then I go to the Cineplex, and there's the big poster with the chainsaw on his arm. I'm just like, whoa, am I dreaming?
Kind of the Snake Plissken kind of effect. You're like, wait, Escape LA? Is that related to New York? Of course. But yeah, I can only imagine, and I think they did pretty good considering that Universal was such a pain to work with, and how they just always kept it alive. It was more than just Campbell's many books and cameos. And I think it was really, believe it or not, did you know this, Kevin? Robert Kurtzman of the K&B Effects Group, he was also the second unit director. That's how he got the Wishmaster gig.
Oh, very cool.
Because Raimi, back when he had some power at Universal, was really good at just telling everybody, hey, give these guys a shot. They're on budget, they're on time, and they got great ideas. And it's just interesting how Evil Dead, you cannot escape. Like, whether you're watching something like The Mummy or something else, just like a crazy, zany movie, it's just like, it's everywhere. People, it's kind of like Romero. There's people who've seen everything he's done, and there's people who's only seen his zombie movies. So it is kind of funny how this is kind of a backwoods terror, and then a zombie action, and then again, Three Stooges themed comedy. So you're just like,
right.
Man, everything. And well, we can do a ranking of the saga near the end, but I guess we can, for now, just kind of, what do you think are just kind of the moments where you're just like, I gotta introduce someone to this, where do I begin?
Well, for me, it began with Army of Darkness. There's so many quotable lines in that movie.
Good,
It's not even.
bad.
Yeah,
I'm the guy with the gun.
it's one of my favorites.
I love that line.
And then whenever my wife and I argue and stuff, and she brings up something I said before, I'll just say, "That's just what I like to call pillow talk, baby."
Oh my
Absolutely.
god. And Campbell's like one of the few who can like kind of pull off these kinds of lines, because like anyone else, might come off as, are you a real life douche? Like a comedian going too far. And he's able to just kind of I don't know if it's just the dumb smart grin on his face to where he's reminding the audience, just laugh. I'm not being for real, or what?
It's definitely the way he carries himself in the movies. Yeah.
Right.
How about
Well,
that opening
go ahead.
shot of part 2 where he's on the crane and he's going, just getting carried away by the force, and it's just getting louder and louder. It's almost a Monty Python effect. You're like, are you
Oh, very much so.
how far are you getting flung?
Well, and he's kind of a normal for Bruce Campbell guy in the first 2 movies. You know what I mean?
Right.
He doesn't become full-fledged kind of douchebag until Army of Darkness, which is
true.
hilarious.
He's kind of like, now I'm entitled. Now I want the princess and I want to be king. Hail to the king, baby.
Well, he gets even douchier in the TV series.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yes,
I
he
love,
does.
and don't you love how like each season is kind of an answer to each movie installment? Like season 1, they're like, let's outdo the gore of the original. Season 2, let's explain what the hell actually happened in that house. And movie 2, movie 3, they're like, okay, let's give him more armies and creatures to fight than in part 3. And yeah, he's even douchier there. He's like, he's got a girlfriend. He's like, come here, sugar, come here. Oh,
Give me some sugar, baby.
give me some sugar.
Yeah.
That's also another line I've used with my wife.
Does it work? Probably not.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Ooh, spicy. All right.
But yeah, he's great because he's a douchebag and he's also kind of an idiot.
Yeah. So we
who
kind
doesn't
of
realize he's
unexpectedly
an
feel
idiot.
sorry versus the die.
He's arrogant but a moron, which kind of adds to the stuff. The whole Klaatu Verata. That was
Well,
that was-
and then when the guy was trying to get him to repeat the words, he says, "I know your damn words, all right."
Yeah,
then-
he's getting all angry, which just shows how insecure he is.
right.
It was like,
Absolutely.
don't bullshit a bullshitter, Ash.
Well, and it's like from movie to movie, you kind of see that progression. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, I know in the first movie, they were going for a straight horror film, right? They were like, they were young filmmakers, young actors. They figured that would be the easiest kind of movie to make, even though that's not necessarily their kind of the genre they're most interested in.
Yes.
So by the time they get to Evil Dead 2, now we've got a little bit more clout. We can start injecting the kind of comedic elements that we
More
appreciate.
budget.
Right.
It's less gray area on you can take it this way versus that way.
Right.
But yet, kind of like Joe Dante, like Raimi is kind of that same kind of fearlessness. Is like, hey, I don't care how you take it. I know what I'm making.
Well, Evil Dead 2, you got the scene where he chops off his hand, but then his hand gets away, and you got this like Bugs Bunny moment where he's trying to, kill the hand.
Right.
Oh,
And then
man. Movies were never the same again. Like you see so many others that you kind of see it in even cartoons for kids, and you're like, I wonder if one of those animators, was a fan, or just had a similar body parody idea,
Right.
and the hands flipping him off. And you're like, how? Even though it's not your hand anymore, it's like, who wouldn't be mad? You're like, don't you? I own you. You're my hand. Don't you flip?
Well, he puts the trash basket on top of the hand, and the book that he puts on it is A Farewell to Arms.
Oh,
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
So it is kind of like Python, where it's like, the more you watch it, the more you're gonna find. It's once isn't enough. Oh man! But then how about the fact that he has to fight an evil version of himself in part 2 and free and in
Right.
season?
Well, that and he
3.
had to fight some tiny versions of himself also in the same
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Oh man.
And they even played on that in a Hercules or Xena episode.
I think so. Yeah. And
So
and they actually did a comic book crossover with Xena, believe it or not.
yeah.
So
Well, he's actually crossed over the comic books with Marvel Zombies too.
Yes.
I didn't
Ash
know about
versus
Marvel Zombies. I knew about Reanimator and Darkman. Not a remake connection, but wow.
Yep. That's funny.
It's fun. And fun fact, so what's his name? Keon, I think is his name. This one pulp novelist. His name will come to me, but apparently he did a short story that is implied to be a Phantasm and Evil Dead crossover, which kind of works because Reggie's kind of the same deal. He's a racist, he's
totally.
a shithead, and yet kind of likable when he's not killing,
Right.
undead creatures. And but yeah, it was so popular, it went out of print, and you can only get it on the author's like Patreon now. I got the screenshot here, but when I found it, I'm like, where did I find it? Must read, because you can be a comic book fan, but who doesn't love just movies and shows that become comics? Like, there's just something kind of fun to it. And I had it here. Oh well. I think it's Bill S. Keon, and it was one of those where it was just like, see, this guy loves writing all this pulp fiction, and it is kind of wild how if this weren't a movie series, it would probably be just a campy Twilight Zone kind of thing. It's just, he doesn't even try to explain all the evils that are around him. I mean, after movie 1, he was just kind of like, it's getting real.
Well, if you watch the movies, the kind of the mythology changes from movie to movie.
Yes.
At one point, it's Sumerian, then it's Kandarian, then it's something else.
Anything it can do to suit all the comedy. It's kind of a more self-aware Captain Kirk in a way. Kind of just he's going around and he's
Well, we get to movie 3 and it's sword and sorcery.
Yes.
He doesn't have the chainsaw as much, and I love how he's having to play tricks on himself, and it's fun seeing all the different versions of that are now included on the Blu-ray. That used to be you could only get them through like a rare DVD.
So, did you guys like the ending of that with that third one with him being 700 years in the future or whatever it was?
I think I was
Or did you
okay
guys
with
see
it, but
that?
I kind of prefer when he comes back.
I prefer him in the supermarket with the
and he sees the dead eye and he's like, look fast. There's a moment.
That's interesting. I didn't realize there was a different ending. So at one point he ends up in the future, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Kind of, yeah.
And they filmed it?
Well, it was included in a DVD set that I had once.
Right. And these Blu-rays basically they now have like the cable TV version, which has extended scenes with the witch, and just other just funny stuff that instead of just dubbing Ash over, he just says the F word like once in movie 3, and is like they just give him other wacky improv that Campbell did, being how he's got some comedy training.
Well, he ends up in the future because he's stupid about it.
Yeah.
It's just like when the guy's trying to get him to repeat the words, and you got to do it this way, and of course he forgets.
I gotta check it out.
He gets very Leroy Jenkins-ish. We talked with Gil off air on how he saw Evil Dead Rise. What was your take, Kevin, on how it kind of went in a whole different direction?
It's interesting. I saw Evil Dead 2013, I think is when it was, which is not a remake. It's considered a sequel.
Yeah,
to
because
these
Ash
other
appears in the
movies.
credits, so you're just like, okay.
Right. And then I literally saw Evil Dead Rise yesterday for the first time. I'd
Oh,
never seen
sweet.
it before. But it's
It's
interesting. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's Evil Dead in a building.
Well, yeah, we were
Right.
joking. It's kind of more Night of the Living Dead, Die Hard in an element.
It kind of reminded me of Poltergeist 3, if you want to get deep into it, where it's like we were talking about. Where it's
my aunt knew. I know they went to a convention and they saw the creepy guy from Poltergeist 2 once upon a time.
Oh, really?
And
That's
it was
very
just
cool.
Yeah, I think my uncle was more geeking out just because Lance Henriksen was there. He's like, "Oh, Mr. Millennium, aliens," and then he's just seeing the guy there, and he just starts guffawing. He's like, I'm waiting for him to say his line to some, crazy fan.
Right.
Like, he just has that shit-eating grin. You're like, yeah, I can make some money doing this.
To answer your question, they're so different tonally than the other movies. I mean, the other movies are they're violent, obviously, but they're violent in such a way as to be almost inoffensive. You know what I mean? It's like
that's the weird thing about it. I see people who even hate horror but love these movies, and then I see people who hate sci-fi and fantasy, but they'll watch something like X-Files. So it is kind of. I think people are just kind of like
these
Ash.
new ones.
They don't know what genres are, so they're just
right. They're kind of like a Rob Zombie, Eli Roth doing where it's violent. It's like cringy violence where you're like, oh my god, there's a cheese grater. You know what I mean?
Well, why is it my sister will run away from a shark movie, but then she'll watch something like Happy Tree Fans, which I don't think is funny, but people love seeing all these stuffed animals putting glass into each other's eyes. I'm like, good God, let's have some consistency here. You're kind of getting that with today's over-the-top action movies. I'll see people who will roast the latest like Man on Fire, Death Wish knockoff, but then they'll be okay with like logic being defied in like a John Wick or Fast and Furious. I'm like, well, hold on. You're okay with it here, but not there?
Right.
What's going on? And people think I don't like horror movies. I'm like, no, I like all genres. There is a place for it. I just don't like Saw type stuff where there's just nothing going on and it's just boring body humiliation, I call it.
Well, I think that's more one of the reasons why I like the Evil Dead movies so much, because I'm not a big
everything can happen in like to Kevin's point. Yeah. You're like, well, but it's what I expect. It's dark comedy, and then other times it's serious, but it's outrageous. Just go with it. It believes it's bread and butter. It believes everything it's saying. Versus we don't know. We just got a note from Blumhouse or whoever on the phone.
But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I don't really like the gore so much, and horror. I'm not really horrified by horror movies. So when the when the Evil Dead movies come along and they get progressively more campy as it goes along, I'm enjoying it.
Right.
It's given,
No, that's a good point too. I mean, sometimes movies are trying to be terrifying or exciting, and we're not really we're wowed by it, but we're not really affected by it because I don't know. Maybe it's because we're not insane in the membrane. It's a movie, and I see so many people as like, oh, I think it was Hill House. I was talking with some podcaster, and she swore she saw an actual ghost. I'm like, oh Lord, we're just watching a freaky mystery show, and I think some people's imaginations, they just go somewhere, and I'm like, I don't know what you're seeing. You're just supposed to be entertained and whatever.
And you know what? Whatever floats your boat. You know what I mean? It's like different strokes for different folks. My thing is, I mean, obviously I host a horror podcast, but my feeling, I know, shocking, is
he wouldn't die.
I like my horror to be kind of fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's not campy. It's not even scary. It's just kind of brutal. You know what I mean? And like, I watched the first Saw movie, for example, and I'm like, I'm good. I don't need to see any more of these.
Yeah.
I saw that. You were talking about, was it Eli Roth that did that Thanksgiving movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that movie, and oh boy, especially when the oven scene came up.
But you
Oh,
kind of know what you're getting with Eli Roth. You know what I mean? You kind of know that's what you're from the Hostel movies, the torture porn era.
Yeah.
You know that's what you're getting. So I typically tend to steer clear. But again, whatever floats your boat.
I mean,
It's just not
you
my
guys
cup
have
of tea.
done, goofy stuff right lately, like, Idle Hands and,
Right.
Robot Jocks and Subspecies and Chopping Mall. But it seems like, I don't know, to your point, yeah, there's expectations, and then it just seems like, I don't know, like some stuff is just like, yeah, I just need to see it once, and I don't need to
Right.
scrutinize it by multiple rewatches, like,
Well, and that's the
I
thing.
don't.
They've kind of wiped away all of the campiness. You know what I mean? Now,
yeah.
Ash doesn't really appear. I mean, he
Mhm.
kind of appears in both the movies.
They have nods to the movie and
They have
to the
not.
previous movies.
I
Well,
wish he had been in Rise. Yeah, it's like you hear a voice on the phone, and that's supposed to be him, I guess.
it's his voice on the record saying, "Destroy the book. What are you
That's what it
doing?" or
is.
something along those
Yeah,
lines.
yeah.
But if you listen to the dialogue from Evil Dead Rise, which is kind of interesting, there are direct callbacks
Oh,
to
that's
Evil
true.
Dead 2 and these other movies. Like she says, "Come get some" at one point to the Deadite she's kicking into the wood chipper. So I mean, there
That's
are those.
right.
She didn't say
There was one.
groovy,
There was one point where I thought she was going to lose her hand too.
Yeah, she
right?
was doing it so intense where you're like, bro, careful.
Now, multiple people do lose their hand in Evil Dead 2013. So if that's what you're looking for, there's a lot of that hand loss.
No, that's true. I don't know. I guess people don't know what they want, and then I guess all it's gonna take is people realizing how good they've had it. Because like you say, we try to watch movies and objectively and not, like I don't even watch the trailer anymore just because I don't want to have to read all the snobby, this looks amazing or this sucks ass, reviews. It's like, good God, guys, it hasn't even come out yet. The trailer's not the movie.
Right.
What
Uh,
isn't it, that Evil Dead remake or whatever it was where they had the girl was Ash, wasn't she? The 2013 one.
Yes.
Her name was Ash,
Well,
I think so.
and she
Yeah.
even loses her hand in that movie.
the car falls on her hand,
Yeah,
and she
What
kind
an
of
irony. Yeah.
pulls it loose, and the hand just pops off like a Lego or something. But you're right. She's Ash because she's possessed earlier in the movie, but then they cure her of her.
was she
I
cured,
always thought
cured by a locket?
no, that would have worked though. No, they did some crazy where she dies. The guy
yeah.
and then
It's
shocks her back to life with a car battery or something, and then she's cured. So there you go. Good times.
pretty kooky. Yeah. Oh, man.
I always thought it was funny in the like Evil Dead 2, where it's like Ash is constantly bouncing back from being possessed to being okay, but he has no qualms about just murdering anybody else who's
Yeah.
possessed.
That would
He's like
actually
sitting
be
there
a
going,
fun
"I'm
take
old."
on it,
Yeah.
where in some other universe he's in like a county jail, and then like you could have all these other sheriffs from other dark fantasy or gothic horror movies just come in and they're like, what do you got here? Who do we have in the cell? Some nut job with a hand for a chainsaw, and I can't make this up, It'd be funny if they just kind of just showed another, maybe just a Lake Placid kind of community, just dim-witted, just deputies are like, I've seen everything, I'm going home. And
You
I
gotta
mean,
wonder with the show how he didn't end up, being put in prison.
yeah,
With him running
they
around,
kind of
nothing ever.
imply, I kind of got the gist in the second movie with how it seems like it's always out in the middle of nowhere. It seems like it's just cold case haven. Just everybody's going missing, and people are just not surprised if you disappear. You're just like, okay. And he did what again? He went into a house and no one went to find him or her. Okay.
What did he do? It's like they drive in the first two movies. They drive from like Michigan to
Yeah.
Tennessee to find an abandoned shack. I mean, did they know the shack was there, or
Yeah, it's underdeveloped, but they're just kind of. It's also one of those. That's the other thing why I think it's lasted so much too. Is just it goes so fast. You don't really have time to just stop something dead in its tracks, saying, "Wait a second," you know.
right?
Well, and then there's that cabin, and that cabin is so huge on the inside. It's like an
Yes.
Evil Dead TARDIS.
It is.
A big ass cabin. I'm just waiting for it to be possessed, you know.
Well, and I read somewhere that Evil Dead 2, like the first 30 minutes or so, is really a remake of the first movie.
Yeah, and it's kind of a
Well,
rarity. Like it
they-
acknowledges it, and then at the same time, like it's redoing everything that happened.
Well, it changes the beginning of it with him and the girlfriend going there by themselves.
Right.
Mhm. Yep.
And then it kind of picks up where the last movie left off, because you see the Evil Dead entity like running through the cabin and jumping out at Ash like he did at the like it was at the end of the first movie
I
at
think
some
so.
point during
Yeah.
the second movie. And that's kind of where it definitely becomes a different movie after
Yes.
that.
Right.
But
I wonder.
like
Go ahead. Sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just wondering, I'm sitting here now, I wonder why they didn't just pick up where they left off. I mean, was it because a lot of people hadn't seen the first one, they thought, and
It's
they needed
like it
like a
got-
refresher?
It's kind of got bootlegged in Japan, and so because so much time had passed, they just figured, hey, we'll catch you up.
That makes
So
sense.
they got to what was the more important gist of the first movie, and that
Like-
was him and his girlfriend, I guess.
Like think of what they did with Dawn of the Dead, where Fulci and company made zombie, but
Mhm.
some of those movies ended up packaging, and it's like they started calling it La Casa Evil Dead overseas, and then making a bunch of cash-in sequels on that. So that was kind of their way of avoiding confusion for all the drive-in trashy movie crowds.
Right. Like in Italy. They love to do that in Italy back in the
They
80s,
love
where
it.
it's just like, we'll just rip it off and then have 15 sequels.
No one will notice or care. Yeah, it's why not? We're related, kind of, sort of.
Well, and even the sequels aren't related to each other. So you might have
Yeah.
2 or 3 zombie 2s or zombie 3s or zombie 4s. Yeah. Good grief.
Good grief. Yeah. Oh man, wild.
But and it definitely made an impact on the world because, I mean, if you look at Sharknado,
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Like post Mummy, like people are kind of coming up with just outrageous. I mean, Cocaine Bear. Hello. I mean,
I was thinking more of when he goes into the shark with the chainsaw in front.
oh well, yeah. After
And
getting
how did that girl
independence.
not get cut up when he went into that shark? But
I
whatever.
Yeah. Well, she got swallowed by the shark unharmed completely. It's a good thing.
And she avoided the chainsaw somehow.
Yes. Just kind of
Somehow.
lean over.
Oh man, wild stuff. Wild stuff. And it's just interesting how I don't know, like I feel like so many people just they're not comfortable doing something like this nowadays, even though there's really nothing to it. Just
Well, it's a balance. It's a balance. If you want to do a campy movie like Evil Dead 2, it's like you have to balance the horror elements with the comedic elements, because usually the complaint is it's too funny to be scary, it's too scary to be funny.
yeah. Mhm.
So, but they do it. They do it. At least in Evil Dead 2, they kind of have the little bit of a balance
Well,
there.
Well, like the first movie, do you know what the budget was for that first movie?
It wasn't much. I know they basically
3.5 million.
It was
that Are you sure that was that much for for Evil Dead?
For
The
Evil Dead 2, Evil
Yeah.
Dead 1, 1981 budget,
It's like
375,000.
right. It wasn't much, and they had to make the movie over like years
Yeah.
because they'd make a little bit of it and then have to get some more cash together, and yeah.
Because you got people out there who probably want to make something like Evil Dead or Army of Darkness, something like that, but they can't really rustle up the kind of money needed for it. Especially not, a lot of the people are like, garage movies kind of thing where it's like really low budget.
These guys trusted each other versus it was made by a husband and wife team who didn't have an idea what to do. It's interesting what they're often able to do by just, again, they trust. Trust means everything. And if you can't keep people just engaged, and believe that something good's going to come out of it, then they'll flake. And they were often able to avoid that by just, like you say, just splitting it up and just seeing what was happening and then messing with the next day. But I do see some other snobs who will talk smack about something shot on digital video now, and I'm like, well, hold on. It's just, it can be good. Like, I think Hell House LLC is a good example of how to do just an unusual premise that uses just simple elements, shocking plot twist, making you think it's an actual documentary at the start, and moody music, just simple editing tricks. And they were able to go above and beyond, as opposed to people say, oh, you're the billionth, Blair Witch, knockoff.
Well,
I preferred Blair Thumb, but yeah.
Blair Thumb.
The cameras on your phone are more advanced than the movie cameras they were using, 40
They really
years
are. And I see so many people who will talk smack, when it was taken over, and I was using it around the same time Steven Soderbergh was starting to use it. I'm like, yeah, guys, it works fine. You still need good acting and a sound guy who knows what he's doing, but you can save yourself so much time, especially if you've got shots, in your head that you want to try.
It's all about story.
Story,
characterization, and things
mess
like
with
that.
some set design, make people think there's somewhere that you claim they are. I see so many people get bogged down in computer graphics. I'm like, well, same deal. It can work. It's just, but if you rush it, then
Well, it's like there's a difference between, The Evil Dead, which was obviously an independent film made on kind of a shoestring, comparatively speaking, versus like Schlock. You know what I mean? It's like you could make Schlock with $10 million budget or $50 million budget. Another thing that's interesting is that Stephen King was actually the patron of this movie. When he saw it, the original Evil Dead, he was so impressed with it, he was able to get them distribution.
Absolutely.
Also,
just by having the writing reviews for them and papers. Yeah.
Absolutely. So good on him.
Yep.
Well, it's been interesting seeing like Sam Raimi's touch on like, Doctor Strange is a family friendly movie, but you could see, his definite, aside from the Spider-Man movies that he did, Doctor Strange was more closer to his Evil Dead type movies than anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's Bruce Campbell.
Yep. Pizza Papa.
Pizza Papa. Yep. Who'd have guessed?
Absolutely.
And I like how he has also kind of sometimes told independent filmmakers is like, hey, I value my time as well. So Raimi's kind of like the only guy he really trusts, where he's like, he's going to get it done on time and it's going to be a blast. It's going to be hysterical.
Well, they're buddies from way back.
Yeah.
I mean, like they went to high school together. I mean, they've known each other.
They took a trust in each other. Yeah.
Well, even Sam Raimi's brother too was involved with that. Ted,
absolutely.
Yep. Good old Ted.
He's and he plays the evil demon Henrietta down in the basement in Evil Dead 2.
Yes, he does.
And he's got a story about wearing that outfit, like like sweat would just pool up inside that thing, and there's a scene in the movie where, like, I don't know, he tilts or something like that, and you can see all the sweat pouring out of the costume.
I'll swallow your soul. Which is another line that also appears in Evil Dead Rises.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
In the middle is I'm swallowing your soul.
To which he later says, swallow this, and then shoots it.
Yes. Boom, yeah. That's kind of the other thing. It embraces kind of the petulant nature of it too. Unlike other movies, which kind of like really going there.
Right.
Oh man. I'll talk about Rises a bit. I know it's a mixed bag. I liked at least like the beginning, just how the moody music kind of set it up to where I didn't know what direction was going to go. I thought that was better than some of the other rehashes where you're like, I'm not sure what this is, but it's not working for me. Oh,
Man, it was very well received. People loved it. I mean, they were going to only release it on streaming, and the reaction to it was so popular that then they put it in the theaters.
Oh, I can't imagine it on streaming. That be almost direct to video.
I wasn't originally planning on going to see it, but we had a relative coming from out of town and big horror fan, and they wanted to see it. So, okay, we'll go see it. I was actually not disappointed in the movie.
Right.
You know, I like the original Evil Dead's more, obviously, but it was all right. And they had so many callback lines and things going on in that movie that made it kind of interesting for me.
I agree. It was definitely I think it was a step in the right direction from 2013, which I thought was 2013 was really rough to sit through because it's a well-made movie. I mean, it really is. The acting's great, the direction is great, but it is, at the risk of sounding like a prude, it is so violent that it kind of made it difficult for me to sit through.
Well, they were definitely trying to take themselves, I guess, more seriously in that movie, although they did some pretty goofy things. But
we were laughing about how the what's her name, Ashley, I guess, in the movie.
Yeah,
she's trying to recover from drug addiction, so they dump all of her drugs into the water supply. I don't know if that was down into the well.
Yeah,
not the best plan, but
somehow it strikes up the demon. Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy.
But yeah, I wasn't exactly sure when you had this podcast set up. I was like, is he wanting to talk about just the Bruce Campbell ones, or is he wanting to talk about other movies and the TV shows?
Circle around favorite moments because I don't know. Like, I kind of get this too. Kind of like how Star Trek-y guys don't really watch anything else Shatner's in. I kind of see sometimes Evil Dead fans are, they only like Bruce Campbell from that and like his Sam Raimi cameos. I'm like, the dude's just very talented. People should seek out so many of his other independent movies. Like,
well, I liked his TV. I liked his Briscoe County show.
Yep.
He also did Jack of All Trades.
Jack of All Trades, which was a syndicated sitcom.
I like that. I mean, they were goofy, but I liked them.
Totally. I think if you guys haven't seen it, you would love both these Sci-Fi Channel movies he did. Terminal Invasion, which was by the director of the original Friday the 13th, which is just a fun kind of alien invasion, trapped in one room movie. And then he did Alien Apocalypse, which is like making fun of all the 50s, B sci-fi. And much like Army of Darkness, he gets an entire bunch of villagers to fight aliens.
Well, he's with what's her name who's on Xena.
Renee O'Connor, and in total camp. Like, they knew the effects weren't going to be good, but they had that work as a strength for them.
There was one movie he did that I thought was a little hard to watch. It was something like The Man with Two Brains kind of thing.
Yeah,
Screaming Brain.
Screaming Brain.
Yeah. It kind of went on too long, and I was just like, okay, I get it. You're making fun of all those, Burleigh Gordon type, crazy movies.
Did you see My Name is Bruce?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that. Yes.
Oh my God.
I waited at Best Buy for it to open it up so I could buy that DVD when it came out.
Oh, are there any good special features on it? I'm sure there are, but
I can't remember anymore. It's put away. I haven't watched it.
But it is wild. It's like kind of like Galaxy Quest, how he's making fun of how he meets people at conventions.
Well, yeah, it's one of those meta ones where it's like he's playing himself
Right.
not.
Kinda, yeah. He directed it, so it was kind of he didn't know where it was gonna go.
I watched all of Burn Notice. I didn't start to watch it initially. It wasn't something I was searching out, but then I heard Bruce Campbell was in it, and he actually plays it pretty straight.
Which
You
was
know what
so
I mean?
surprising. You're like, oh,
Right.
He's got a little bit of his character in there, but
A little bit. Like, I think they give him like his own TV movie or whatever, where he's
yeah.
and then he's really Ash in that moment. But on the week to week, he's just doing it. He's a working actor. He's doing his thing.
We'll return after these messages.
If you like small town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and foodie debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
The Jacked Up Review Show podcast is honored to be part of the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Join anytime, talk the talk, and enjoy yourselves. There's something enlightening for everyone with this crowd of cool cats. Check them out. He's really good on a Homicide Life on the Street crossover where he's playing a crazed man who ends up killing his dog and wife. And by the time they find out, he's doing the killing and his paranoia is coming to fruition. It's too late and they're just having to arrest him. But just even all his other just random guest spots, like that X-Files one where he's like, again, he's really good at doing all these split personas. And it's funny when you even see him in, Intruder or Maniac Cop. And
Maniac Cop, absolutely.
What's the other one? Where he's in space with Chekhov. Moontrap. But there was even another one he did in like '92 that he's really good at just playing it straight. He's like, yeah, that happened. And it was such a fun movie too that doesn't get talked about enough. It'll come to me here in a bit, but
he's in Bubba Hotep as well.
So there's Coscarelli from Phantasm giving him a boost.
There's reasons to not like that movie, but I like
it. Okay, Mind Warp. That's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Mind Warp.
And it's just also known as Prank Slasher, just another post-apocalyptic movie where there's several moments. He actually works with the tall man in that movie, but it's just fun because he's just kind of it was actually produced by Fangoria Films back in the day, but I just love how he's just jumping around and he just always has that, oh God, just look on his face when he's
he's in Escape from LA, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, the surgeon. Oh my God.
The Surgeon General of Beverly Hills.
Oh,
absolutely.
Man. And I
gave him an even bigger chin in that.
I never knew it was him growing up. I'm always like, who is that guy? And then I'm like, I would always see it on his credit. I'm like, who did he play? Oh.
Let's be honest. You definitely get a certain hammy quality if you're going to hire Bruce Campbell to be in your film, but I enjoy it.
Well, and then he's in those bigger movies like Hudsucker Proxy, or there was The Congo, which I guess a higher budget movie, I should say.
Yeah. You can definitely tell Amblin was like, who's a genre guy we can get. I read that he was in one of the Call of Duties, and once again, it's on like one of their zombie attachments.
Well, I just remember wanting to go see Congo because he's in it, and then finding out he dies within the first 10 minutes, maybe.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, he doesn't have much to do in that one. Very sad.
No. I'm glad he's in it, but at the same time, I would have liked to have seen him kill a few gorillas before.
Tickle Amy.
Oh my word. And I don't know. I see other people who won't even check out some of his other stuff, and it's like, come on, you know you want it.
They like
Running
him just
Time,
only for. They like him, but just for only Evil Dead.
kinda. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Running Time is a very underrated movie he's done, where he just robs a bank at Reservoir Dog style, and then it's all in black and white, and he's just very charismatic and surprisingly has a romantic arc in this movie. So you're just like, see, I can see him being a ladies' man if he wanted to. He's just, they often have him be just the nincompoop, who
Right.
gets killed.
Give me some sugar, baby.
Sure. Oh man, so wild. So I can totally recommend the Freddy and Jason comic book crossover, and I know some people were like, "Oh, I would have loved to seen it as a movie." I'm like, I think it worked probably best as a comic, just because if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Like, people don't rage on it as much as a movie where they've had to go see it on the big screen and invite all this other unwelcome,
Well, it invites certain things that like the Ash versus the Marvel Zombies or whatever. That was you're not going to see that on on a movie or anything like that.
Yeah, it'd be too many rights to have to go around, and yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah.
Oh man, and so I guess we could rank the movies on a 5-star scale. I'll let Kevin go because it's been a minute.
Do you want to go one at a time, or do you want them all?
You can branch them together, especially if they're the same rating. If you want, whatever's easier.
Oh, okay. Well, let's think about this. If I was The Evil Dead, I'd probably give it 4 stars out of 5. It's scary. It's scary. It definitely has a few, like a hint towards the kind of comedy that you might eventually see, but
Yeah.
it's definitely not the slapsticky that you'd see before. Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, I'm gonna give that 4.5 out of 5 because I just think it's hilarious. That was the one. That's one of those movies to me that you're like, hey, you guys got to check this out. You're not going to believe this.
Can you believe this? Yeah.
Right. Army of Darkness. I might pull that back to a 4. 4 stars. I love it. I think it was great. It's sometimes a little too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I enjoy it. The 2013. This was hard because technically it's really a well-made film. It's not my cup of tea. I'm gonna give it 1.5 stars.
Hey, this is you. We are not Snob City. We go with the gut.
Right.
What you want.
And I'm gonna say Evil Dead Rise. I'm gonna give it 3 stars. Yeah. So
yeah, as you described before, it's there, and then there are times where it's not quite there, so it's fine.
Right.
Okay, Gil, I'll let you. Oh, and the TV show.
TV show, I feel like I definitely watched 2 seasons. I'm trying to think if I watched the third. I did not enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the previous movies.
2.5 probably.
I would say maybe 3, 3 stars for Ash versus the Evil Dead. I didn't find it as funny. And granted, it's harder to be funny. It's easier to be funny in one movie, a 1 hour-and-a-half period or whatever, than to have to do it every week.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'd give Ash versus Evil Dead 3 stars.
Oh, good.
3.5 stars. Excuse me.
Cool. Okay, Gil, I'll let you take it away.
I'll try. Let's see. Evil Dead, the first one. I, I tended to like the ones that came out later more than the first Evil Dead.
This is your list. This is your
Yep.
ranking. We all
I'd
have hot
say,
takes. When we did the Halloween episode, I kept going. Trigger warning. You might not like my opinion.
but so say I'll give the first one maybe a 3 out of 5 for that one. And then Evil Dead 2, they started ramping up the jokes, and the humor, and they made it more cartoony in a lot of ways. I kind of enjoyed that. I'd give that a 4. And then my favorite was Army of Darkness because of all the one-liners and the campiness in it. So I'd give that a 4.5.
Great.
I barely remember the 2013 one. I mean, I can recall some of the things that happened that kind of related to the first movies. I'll give that 2.5. So then Evil Dead Rise, I liked it for what it was. They took away most of the campiness of it, but I'll give that a 3.5.
Cool.
And then I did enjoy the Ash versus Evil Dead TV show. I mean, they were 20-some minute episodes or 30-minute episodes. They packed a lot into each episode because there's always a lot going on in them. I'll say 4 for that for me.
Oh, all right. So I'm pretty much a lot of the same kind of reviews here. I'm gonna go with a 3 out of 5 for the original. I love it as a how to do it movie in your backyard. It's just kind of more like, think of it now like on a TV show. Like, okay, it's the first season. It's not quite there yet, but it's working. It's it should still be seen, even if you're not like, you don't take away as much as you want from it at first. And then part 2 and Army of Darkness, I would give a 4 out of 5. I just find them very quotable. Yes, as you say before, some gags work better than others, and I do wish Army had a little more gore in it. But altogether, like, I can put them on. Like, I think the reason they have lasted so long in pop culture is just their party movies. They are.
The one thing I enjoyed about all those movies with Bruce Campbell is how often he got drenched with whatever blood or blood type substance there was.
Yes.
Right.
Oh man.
Especially in Army of Darkness, you get all that blood. You're always getting all this blood coming out, and you're like, no body holds that much blood in it.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
Not a
I'm enjoying it.
chance. It is almost like the Mr. Orange getting shot on Reservoir Dogs. You're like, good God, he would have bled out by now. Get that man to the hospital. And then I would get 2013 movie. I'm sorry, I'm not so crazy about the filmmaker, and I'm not sure what he's going to do with the Alien franchise. But other than at the very end where the female lead goes, feast on this motherfucker, it's like it's just a real. You could argue that the original is a slow burn, but like, and my co-host actually really likes this one a lot, and I just am not feeling it. I just think while it's competently made, it's also kind of, the art direction just kind of takes me out of it. I feel like I'm watching a Netflix movie on the cheap, and all the best stuff. It was kind of like the 2022 Texas Chainsaw, where it's very slow moving, no surprises, and then everyone remembers the last 20 gory minutes, but it's not really worth slogging through. TV show, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Like, I would have watched 3 more seasons of this, and I think it worked so well for me just because I binge watched it. Like, I would do a season a day. So I recommend that for just anyone in general. Like, 3 episodes of a show will often hook you way easier than having to do, an hour and then go to bed. I think it's just because it answers a lot of questions in the franchise while also reminding you on, yeah, this happened. And what's going to be next. I just like how, kind of like Phantasm, they're just reminding that this world is going to only get crazier. And Ash is finally acknowledging, yeah, you kind of need my stupid, somewhat helpful talents, to save the day. So I just kind of like that self-acknowledgement, kind of like some of these other TV rehashes of other popular movies and shows. And my rating is pretty much the same for Rises as you all. It was a little uneven, but it's still like, even though there wasn't really much suspense, I felt like, again, it was still kind of compelling from just kind of a, let's put on a show and then let's do our kind of own thriller terror streak in the last hour. And the characters were pretty likable, even though I felt anyone could have played them. And so it wasn't flawless, but I just at least felt like it was involving enough. And that says a lot, because like I did see parts of like TV spots and posters, and I was like, I don't know, but I thought it was a step up. I don't know where they go with the franchise from here, other than just more video games. But I would like to see more comic books, that's for sure. And once again,
Also, Evil Dead Rise movie.
I mean, Evil just going to keep
You're breaking
rising.
up on me. I can't hear you. So, well, I mean, they're going to move further away from Ash, I guess. But
yeah, he doesn't want to keep doing it,
Right.
But
I think
that's
he's
okay.
retired, right? From playing the role.
Yeah, I think he does want to, because I mean, he's been so funny in interviews where he's just like, we did the movie, we didn't expect anything, and now we didn't expect what we got from the second one. So I think, he can keep doing more guest spots and narration and just other conventions from this point on. He really doesn't have to do any more of it, but it is kind of one of those, you see fans are like, I need more. It's like, well, why?
Well, who would you even have as Ash anymore?
I'd be okay with it being a totally different guy,
Well, I don't know, Bradley Cooper maybe is of course he's getting up there in age too.
It could be just a new, like, if you want to have just some other B movie regulars like Tiffany Shepis or some of those other Tim Thomerson, I think would be hysterical. Now it's Jack.
I think he's even older than
he is, but that would be the joke, because Transfers was kind of his Evil Dead meets Back to the Future, so it'd just be kind of funny to just kind of see him.
Well, Bruce Campbell is a producer on all these movies, and what I read is that he would not sign off on another Evil Dead where they recast Ash. That's why you never see another Ash in these movies. So,
nice.
So we'll see.
And that's true. I mean, and I think that's what I admire about him. Like, he doesn't, unlike some of these other actors, he doesn't let all the money men decide his contracts. He was fortunately able to call the shots then and there and say, hey, a joke can only be said, after I've said it 100 times, how do we keep the joke, funny? And I applaud that for anyone. You don't have to learn the hard way like Stallone or Eddie Murphy or John Carpenter even, where you're like, okay, people aren't accepting it anymore,
Right, we've done that.
Because rejection sucks. It really sucks, because you don't know what you can do better when you've just been told no.
Yeah, 70-year-old action stars. That's what we need. Yeah.
Liam Neeson.
I know for a while he and Tony Todd were kind of teasing, let's do an Expendables version, but like with horror actors like Freddy Krueger and such. But I don't know, they've kind of done it, but not really. So I don't know. There's plenty of other franchises I would have loved to just see Ash make a cameo in, and that would be more than enough for me, honestly. But what do I know? But Kevin, I gotta applaud you, because you go into just all kinds of movies that like they have an audience, but you really don't see enough people like talk about it. Like everything from Species to just other obscure kind of slashers and 80s like trapped in space kind of movies.
I appreciate that. Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, we've done modern popular films and we've done crazy obscure things. It is
Yeah, you've done
literally
everything
just
from Dusk Till Dawn to
right.
you know.
Whatever the spirit moves us, however the Necronomicon,
Yeah,
blows through our window. So, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
for sure. And you're always active on social media, and I applaud that because it's tough to keep up with the flow. I know you did. I heard your Warlock episode, and I miss Julian Sands even more and more every day.
Absolutely.
The dude was.
Oh, that's
always
a
a
name I
fun-
haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, and it was so funny. I remember when I was introducing my parents to 24, and they're like, "Wait a second, is that the guy who was in Leaving Las Vegas?" And I'm just, and sure enough, he's been in everything, and it's one of those where you're just like, why did he disappear, and why could no one find him on that one hiking trip? And again, Warlock is just fun. It's just fun.
I haven't watched it in a long time, but
Terminator
yeah.
type movie, yeah, and kind of like Evil Dead, they did a second one, and it was just fun to kind of see them kind of acknowledge the first one, but then kind of do a loose reboot of the sequel. Is just, again, I think people are just, they don't know how to market their work, I think, is the main issue. Like, or if they do, like, they're afraid of rejection. It's like, well, just go for it,
Well,
Like-
in this day of Instagram and Facebook and all these other outlets,
just
what?
insufferable. And it's just like, guys, just chill out. If it's not even out yet.
Well, and
I mean,
oftentimes the movie companies, you have a entirely different department who's in charge of promoting the
Mhm.
movie. So
Yep.
they oftentimes promote it how they think people would want to know rather than what it's really about. So it's
It's
often
not in studio anymore. Yeah.
right, it's a mystery.
And I mean, you've done When a Stranger Calls, and I kind of like even just talking about just kind of the obscure movies and how, unfortunately, some people only know about lesser remakes of them. And I'm like, well, what's the original? I mean, I've encountered that with my mother at times where she's like, Planet of the Apes, didn't they do that awful, in 2000s? I'm like, nope, no, stop right there. It's just, you have to stop these guys once in a while.
With
It's
Marky
like,
Mark.
yeah, I don't know what version you saw, but that's not what most people consider. And
The one, yeah.
it's just, I don't know. Like Trimmers, they can keep doing a bunch of those, and
They have.
I stopped at 3.
yeah, I think I've seen them all, but I did kind of deteriorate on the last two. But I was just like, yeah, go figure. That's Michael Gross's kind of motif. He'll do some
Right.
TV work.
Yeah, the
He'll-
dad from Family Ties is the
Family Ties, yeah. And then that's like his second best known role, and he's just gonna keep milking it every once in a
He's a-
while. And kind of like
the dad-
Ash, same kind of deal. He's technically a douche guy, hates the government and everything, and yet he'll say like one thing that's true that you relate to, and you're like, oh my god. And now he's gonna kill all these giant snake type creatures. It's funny when they do versus movie like crossovers. Like I actually had some fun with like Placid versus Anaconda just because it was just outrageous. It's just like
Lake
go-
Placid versus Anaconda.
Yeah.
What the lake is fighting the anaconda?
It's
Interesting.
just the gators in the lake, but yeah, I mean, it was just Sony used to just go crazy with it after a while. I'm like, of course, these are the studio that brought you Bo versus Python after a while.
Aren't these all like Sci-Fi Channel?
Yeah, it was
release?
sci-fi, but it was
Yeah.
also kind of fun seeing Freddy Krueger actor Robert Englund in there as the mad scientist who's helping save the town. It was just kind of this is nutty.
Yeah, it's like the Asylum, I think, is the company.
They're the
that makes
Sharknado
these
company.
movies.
Yeah.
They're famous for the Transmorphers
Oh my God.
franchise and
Mhm.
Atlantic Rim. You know them,
Yeah.
don't you?
Yeah.
They've even done some superhero type movies that kind of aped off of the name for like Justice League and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Sometimes
remember-
even barely changing the title. I recommend La Vantula, which did cross over with them since it was a sci-fi property, because it was just
Lava Lantula. I remember that
it-
with Steve
it's-
Gutenberg, right?
yeah, the Police Academy actors appeared, but I loved how just Mike Mendez, who's made a living kind of doing Joe Dante, Sam Raimi type stuff. It's just like don't kill it and what have you. He just knows how to keep it 90 minutes without making you feel like it's over long or just too dumb. He's just I take it have you guys ever seen Charles Band at a convention?
Nope.
No.
I love how just I've seen some of the videos he used to post on his YouTube, and he's just hysterical because he's just kind of like Jim Wynorski. He's very self-deprecating. He'll go, "If you hate my movies, stop buying my next Killer Doll movie." I just love how he knows what he's making, and he's just having fun doing it.
Absolutely.
You mentioned Ted Raimi earlier. I remember watching a 2016 panel where he and the stars of Wishmaster were together, and Robert Kurtzman noted how he had done a photoshopped Candyman versus Wishmaster poster in his office, and Ted started joking around with Andrew Divoff, who plays the Djinn. He's like, "Do you die in this movie?" Nope. Surprisingly, I make it out alive in the Jack Ryan movies, but yeah, that Coen Brothers movie, I die.
I'm trying. You mentioned Charles. You mentioned Charles Band. Is he the Full Moon guy?
Yeah,
Yes.
Full Moon creator. He had a podcast back in like 2022 to early 2023, and then he kind of stopped doing it, which was a shame because he had just so many. He was getting a lot of the same guests who were like on Mick Garris and a bunch of the other horror sci-fi podcasts, and it was like, see, but these guys are just talking shop. They're talking what they've done 40 years ago. That you just can't compare to now.
Well, I'm just trying to think of two movies, Oblivion and Oblivion 2. That was
well, but aside from Trancers and the Puppet Master, and he's just and Robot Jogs, he's just always coming out with just some just outrageous formula, and you're just like, of course, like the minute you see that logo, you're like, I know what I'm watching. Demonic toys and everything. It's just
Absolutely. Well, I go even further back. I liked the Reanimator movie.
There
and
you
From
go.
Beyond.
Yeah.
From Beyond. Yep. So the Stuart Gordon collaborations, and in college, I watched a lot of stuff that Gordon had worked on with Brian Usna, like Progeny, Faust, and The Dentist. And it was always just fun how for a while that was kind of the motif, because like you say, like it didn't get too extreme, but it did get like over the top to where you weren't surprised if you saw it on like an HBO or sci-fi type station.
You brought up Reanimator, made me think of Jeffrey Combs. There's another
Yeah.
actor that I just love to watch, no matter what he does.
The man
he's
is
played.
very charismatic, and I feel for him when he just talks about how sometimes people would be very rude at certain like casting auditions, to where that would kind of make him flock and just say, okay, I'm doing more independent stuff, even if it's not my cup of tea. I feel like a lot of guys are just, I mean, I kind of miss when, you can make a highbrow movie, that's fine, but people used to just kind of joke and then watch a lowbrow movie. It just wasn't, no one was forcing you to watch it. Like if you want to watch something goofy like Ginger Dead Man or Leprechaun, go for it.
Killer Bong.
Killer Bong. You know what you're watching. I mean, with a title, how is that not apparent? I mean,
Watched them with riff tracks.
Yeah, I bet it
or
was.
something like that. Well, I don't know if they did Evil Bong. I don't know what they did,
They
but
should,
they did the Charles
if they
Band
haven't.
movies.
I mean, and I'm okay with just wacky, just other just bizarre stuff where just, I don't know, just do just something just goofy, like I'd be okay if they rebooted Pumpkinhead or something, even though I legit like the first one, so it is what it is, man.
Lance Hendrickson, I still have to watch that one. I've never seen it.
You're in for a treat. And I always like doing kind of some of these fun B movies, because you never heard about anyone getting hurt. And I think that's what Evil Dead also paved the way for. People would get hurt on it, but not to the point where like people weren't being properly paid, or someone ripped off their word or anything, So I always, I hope from the writer's strike and everything, people can remember, hey, don't take shortcuts, do a movie clean and simple, I would always get annoyed when I would see how, like, I think it was Joe Estevez. Yes, that soul taker, Joe Estevez, who I'm best pals with. Martin Sheen's younger brother from all the
Right.
crazy B movies. And he told me how I would hear from both him and other people on forums how the Maniac Cop guy, Robert Zadar, would get bullied by conventions because of how he looked. And I'm like, well, good God. You're here for a signature. You're not here to tease someone on, an allergic skin condition that they have on their face. Good God.
Right.
So I hope the convention scenes are still being pleasant and polite. I hope, because I would always get angry when I would watch a movie that was entertaining, but then hear about behind the scenes how the actor was impossible to work with, or someone got touched inappropriately during a sex scene, or someone actually broke their leg during a fight. It just always gets irky because you're just like, what's going on with
Right.
people? Should be able to get this done, and makeup people probably do have it the worst because sometimes people aren't patient with the process, and other times the actor's picky about how many times they wear it during the day. So, I mean, it's a very taxing situation, and the easier you can make it for everybody, the better, man. Just and just feed everyone on time. Come on, can't work on an empty stomach.
That is true.
But yeah, if anyone would want to plug anything, promote anything, now's the time.
No, just like the only thing I got going on is I'm going to go see a Riff Tracks event sometime soon.
Yeah, there you go.
But other than that, I got nothing else I do. So
Perfect. Kevin, what do you have coming up that you'd like to tease?
Yeah, I'm one of the hosts of the podcast That Wouldn't Die. We discuss guilty pleasures and forgotten
We got to
classics.
do it in a La Fontaine type voice. The podcast that wouldn't die.
Guilty pleasures, forgotten classics of the horror and sci-fi genre with a comedic twist, we hope. Let's see. This last week we did The Wraith, the Charlie Sheen car science fiction horror movie. Hard to say.
It's that girl from Twin Peaks is in it.
Sherilyn Fenn is in it.
Yep.
Randy Quaid, Clint Howard. It's really an all-star cast. So you have that to look forward to.
Oh shoot! I forgot. I bought that movie like a year ago, and I was going to show my wife, then forgot I had it. So now I've got to remember to show it to her.
It's a thing. It's a problem. And next week, I'm not sure when this is coming out, but next week we're doing The Purge. So that's another. My co-host and I had never seen it before, so we jumped right in. So that's with Ethan Hawke and the gang.
Have you ever done Killdozer?
I have not done Killdozer, but I'm adding it to the list right now.
We did have fun doing that because like we incorporated a interview from Conan and just it was kind of just in that mix of just crazy, just people being attacked by anything, any inanimate object. Where you're just like, of course, a killer tractor trying to kill everybody. Perfect.
Beware.
Don't go to a theme park, kids. This will freak you out.
Absolutely.
It was campy, and again, no one got hurt during the making of it. Everyone kind of laughs it off when they're asked about it in interviews. I miss that when kind of that Roger Corman effect, where it's like, yeah, I did that. What will you ask me that I haven't been asked 100 times already?
It was and it was Robert Urick's first movie.
Robert Urick, yeah, before he became a TV regular. So, and
oh, nice.
Patton Oswalt brings it up as one of his favorite cheesy movies. But see, that's kind of like you say, the proper way to make a cheesy movie, because then you see other people doing stuff and trying to put it on Tubi, and you're like, come on, guys. Can you let your material breathe instead of just trying to make an easy buck from all the nut jobs?
Absolutely.
But I applaud anyone out there who can do I would love to do a panel in the future and just bring a bunch of podcasters along and somehow broadcast it, but we'll see. I love how
And you are welcome to be on an audio drama in the future. Well, we're gonna keep trying to experiment with all kinds of different audio outlets. And
sounds great. Just let me know.
Just always look twice before you go inside a trailer. I don't know. just random Crystal Lake advice. I don't know.
Oh,
I'm not an expert. I've never been there.
I was like, is that a Killdozer thing? No, you're right. If you're at Crystal Lake, look out.
I would
Look
love
out, no
to.
question.
I wonder if I could cosplay as the sheriff from Part 6 and how many people would actually get that I'm doing that. Because that sheriff, he tried and he filmed. He fought Jason for 5 seconds, but he tried and he failed.
He put his best foot forward.
He tried, but he couldn't muster the win. But yeah, no, I would love for them to do more Jason comics and then just have Ash just randomly appear in there and just randomly like comment on all the random places he's been. He's like, "You went to space, motherfucker." Here's some boomstick again. So yeah, everyone sleep tight and don't let the deadites bite.
See you later.
Always a delight.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening. It's a jacked